The wonderful thing about history is how everything is related. We're all related. I mean, there's a reason for having Pasadena here. The background is all connected to development, and it's all connected to water. Water was a main, you wouldn't have the civilization here without the water.
Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warmoth.
All right, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the SGV Master Key. Thanks for tuning in and spending this time with us. We always appreciate it. Before I forget, there is a listener in France who's listening to every show, and I don't know who that is. I don't think we can find that out. But if you're listening to this show, thank you for your listen and for checking out the show.
Yeah, and email us. Let us know. It'd be kind of fun to, maybe it's an expat from San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah,
we can have a show with them.
Sure. Well, we always try to tie in something about our guest in our initial conversation. And this one, the common thread is our friend Thomas, right?
Right. Thomas, your client at Workout Fitness and my competitive sort of spirit. Thomas is we've mentioned him before. He's a good guy. You've known him for a number of years.
Yes.
And he's really dedicated, and I still will never forget that he actually beat me running up the mountain once.
Seconds, though. Less than 10 seconds, I think.
Yeah. Yes. And I did beat him the first time.
Yeah. So, Thomas was a retiree from the Department of Water and Power. And he has shared a lot of stories, from his life experiences there. And now the stories move on to things that he's doing with his friends in retirement. And I've heard the name before, and he's shared some stories of, what our guest does. But after looking into what he actually does, I was really, really impressed, and I can't wait to hear more about it. But our guest today is Jack Feldman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So your connection to the San Gabriel Valley is, how should I describe it? Well, on the website, it says museum curator, right? Among other things. So what is it that you do?
Well, when you talk about the museum, it's a virtual museum that I put together for an organization called Water and Power Associates, which consists of retired managers and executives in the water and energy industry. And when I came along 15 years ago, but at the same time that Thomas retired, I think we retired within a few months of each other, we both went our ways, but I wanted to get involved with some professional organization. And so they asked me to set up a website, being the youngest one joining this board. And I told them that basically don't know much about websites, but I'm an engineer and I can learn. Engineer by training. I've had several degrees. But I have a son-in-law who's an IT specialist, and he can certainly show me how to do it. And so it evolved. I put together this museum that showed initially the history of water and electricity and how that helped develop Southern California, San Gabriel Valley, mainly LA area. And the historical societies like what I put on, and they kept contacting me and saying, please come over and talk to us, do some talks to our memberships. And they kind of, as I was telling Russell, they kind of stroked my ego. It felt really good that people were paying attention to a product I was putting together, and they wanted me to basically enhance it and expand it, do something besides electricity and water. And I had a lot of time on my hands, and I loved the feedback, and I was in touch with all these curators at Huntington Library and USC and some of the other universities, and now I was becoming a little more familiar in how to navigate through their archives. And so I started putting it all together by sections, whether it's early views of Pasadena. Pasadena was a big section that I got a lot of positive response. San Fernando Valley, Santa Monica, some of the other cities, and it expanded. We have over 120 sections.
Where on the web are you located?
We're located on the website is waterandpower.org or Water and Power Associates. And I have to first explain that the organization is not so much into the history. Its main focus was to educate the public and the politicians and the media on energy and water issues. But in addition to that, to preserve the historical records of Southern California. That was just in a secondary mission. But that expanded so much, and we got such positive feedback that became part of the mission of the organization.
How far back in history do you go?
Go back to the first day that someone took a picture of someplace in Southern California. I go back a little further than that, but this is basically a picture-based virtual museum. So let's say we have Pasadena as an example, because we're here. Took the earliest picture ever taken in Pasadena.
What is that?
Well, it's on the website. I put that section together about 10 years ago, and I have 20,000 images on this website, by the way.
Wow. So
we have, but it's basically the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains, and basically, and I had no idea what the history was of this area. But once you start putting the pictures there of Lake, of Fair Oaks, and where Colorado was, and how the old town started to expand, and if you put the pictures chronologically by year it was taken, then there's a tendency to understand how everything evolved in this area. And then what I've done in addition to the pictures, I put historical notes underneath it. Not my original writing many times, but out of Wikipedia, out of some other books or research. And now it started to make sense. Everything started to come together. And I took it from day one, from the 1800s, all the way to, sometimes all the way to today. I've got some pictures, but I focus mainly on the history.
It's really impressive.
Thank you.
I can't believe something like this exists, and people, that I didn't know about this, that this is really such a treasure. And I'm only looking at this early view of Pasadena, and I can see the views where they're from, because a lot of them are taken from Echo Mountain or up in the hills. And so the terrain features are familiar, but everything else is just, undeveloped. And I've never seen pictures like that before. So you mentioned before we started recording that this wasn't what you had in mind, and you sort of came into this. But what did you do before? What is?
Well, I worked at LA Department of Water and Power for 35 years, plus years. I was there as a student engineer as well. And I retired as a senior manager in charge of engineering on the power system. And Thomas, by the way, our mutual friend, he was in charge of the construction organization, who put up the poles, the wires, the underground circuits. And so we worked together on opposite sides, engineering versus construction. And we developed a mutual friendship. And But that's what I did, to answer your question, for 35 years.
And DWP is countywide, right?
No, DWP is a municipal utility. It's just Los Angeles City.
Okay.
But we're very close with Pasadena, Water and Power, and Glendale and Burbank. In fact, many of our managers go to these other organizations and become managers there because of their background or their expertise. Department of Water and Power is the largest municipal utility in the United States. Some people don't understand that, and as such, it's a wonderful organization. It really is.
So a lot of us, at least at my age, are familiar with the movie Chinatown.
Yes.
And that was sort of an examination into the whole water issue, water rights issues, and how water came to L.A. And I know that there is some basis in history to that movie. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that movie is 35% correct.
Okay.
And 65% embellishment and made for the movies to make it a little more interesting.
Uh-huh.
But, I just did a talk on that last week, in fact, to the Calabasas Historical Society. They were asking about that. And if I have a couple minutes, I can share the story behind that, because the Southern California area was growing leaps and bounds, and there was a reason for it. The reason was the weather. The reason was agriculture. Oranges were big back then. And the train system, the Transcontinental Railroad. Those are the big factors that came to the perfect storm where the population of LA increased. When I say LA, I mean Southern California. It increased to from 5,000 to over 100,000 in a period of about 40 years, which was the largest growth of any region in the country at that time.
And you're talking about late 80s, late 19th century, or?
Yeah, I'm talking about LA became a city in 1850, and I'm talking about from 1850 to 1900, that period. And you have the San Gabriel River and you have the LA River. And they predominantly provided most of the water for the inhabitants of the folks in Southern California. The runoff off the San Gabriel Mountains, basically, plus some other mountains in the area. And so that river, for instance, the LA River was only good for about 300,000 people at that point. The population was already at 100,000. But it wasn't a steady stream of water. So what you would have is you would have some seasons where you would have enough water, and some we're living in a semi-arid area and you wouldn't have enough. And so to answer your question in relationship to Chinatown, William Mulholland, brilliant man, dedicated to providing service to the folks, and from day one, he devised a way of bringing water from Owens Valley to LA. But it was going to cost a lot of money. And this is very complex, but I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can. So how are they going to get the voters to pay for bonds? I think $26 million to build back then in the 1900 was quite a bit of money, especially supported by only 100,000 people. That's quite a bit. And so there were folks who had inside information as to where the water was coming from. It was going to come into the San Fernando Valley. No one else knew but a couple of folks, the president of the Water Commission, Mr. Sherman, with a name Sherman way after. And he was a developer, and he was a partner with Otis Chandler, the people ahead of the LA Times, who were the big millionaires at that point. And they said, we need to get this water, and there's an opportunity for us to develop the land in the San Fernando Valley. So they printed in the LA Times false rain reports to panic the folks to thinking that, oh my gosh, we're running out of water tomorrow. When in effect, they still had time. They still had several years. They still had another 10 years. And so unanimously, 10-1, the folks in LA passed this bond measure, first for $1.5 million to study it, and then $26 million to build this 200-mile pipeline from.
Well, that's interesting. So
Okay, yeah.
I was just going to refer back to Otis Chandler, and so for his own personal gain,
Yes.
he contrived news stories that would allow him to get in on the land grab.
Yeah, so they formed a syndicate, and this is just a very small part of the whole picture, but they formed a syndicate. They purchased 2/3 of the San Fernando Valley.
Wow.
They developed 3 cities. They developed Van Nuys. They developed Marion, which was Chandler's wife's name, which turned into Reseda. And they developed Owens Mouth and they said it's going to be Owens Mouth because that's going to be the mouth of the Owens River coming into the West San Fernando Valley. That became Canoga Park and Woodland Hills at that time in Chatsworth. So they were able to reframe the problem in a way that they would financially gain, and they did. And that's basically what Chinatown tries to emphasize. But was there a need for water? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it would have happened within 5 to 10 years, but here are some opportunists that made a fortune off of that.
Well, that's an interesting story, but it kind of highlights the whole importance of land and water, and just the history of Los Angeles has been land, real estate, water.
It's the history of Southern California, not only Los Angeles. And it's the wonderful thing about history that I found, and remember, I was an engineer and a manager and for all those years, and I never had time to venture into the historical part. But one thing I did find is how everything is related. We're all related. I mean, there's a reason for having Pasadena here. There's a reason for having Glendora, and the background is all connected to development, and it's all connected to water. Water was a main. You wouldn't have the civilization here without the water.
Right. I've been trying to hold on to this question so I don't lose it. You said that the LA River was not able to accommodate, I think it was 300,000. How do you figure that? Like, how is that calculated?
Well, there have been 26 books, last I counted, on the topic, and I can't tell you how they figured out the exact amount, but based on the volume of water, they knew that they were running low of water, and that 300,000 figure comes up again and again in all the literature that I've read.
My other question was Thomas. He would share stories, and he would describe not wanting to go to Bishop, California, and it has something to do with the water there. And maybe you can shed some light if you know any of this. Well,
in order to get the water from Owens Valley, Bishop is the largest town up there. The city of Los Angeles had to buy some land and some water rights up there in the early 1900s, and so it was basically bought. The land was bought and the water rights without explaining to the folks up there, and there weren't many, that water was going to be transported down to Los Angeles. And that's where some of the bitterness grew up. Now, I'm not going to get into the details, right or wrong, who came out ahead, who didn't. but I read both sides of it. We have an editorial written about Owens Valley and how dare, this one fella says, how he's an Indian, comes by his family. He says, how dare the folks in Owens Valley say that LA stole their water? Well, they stole the water from us when we were living up there. Okay, so, and then there's another perception, and that's the fact that that area gained financially tremendously and was able to grow because an infrastructure was built, roads were built, jobs were created. In fact, right now, Water and Power is the number one employer in Owens Valley. So there are all kinds of sides and there are all kinds of issues. And again, books have been written on this, and I can't go in 10 minutes over what occurred.
Sure. Jack, we ask each guest to bring an item with them of significance, and can you share with us what you brought with you today?
Yeah, I was thinking what to bring, and this one item that I'm holding is an hourglass. Actually, it's a 2-minute glass.
2-minute glass. Okay.
2-minute glass. The first time I looked at it yesterday, and it's 2 minutes, and it has it's encased in
epoxy.
Yeah, epoxy, and it's got the Eiffel Tower, 2 Eiffel Towers on it. If you take a look at this, and that has significance to me because my life changed back 30 years ago when I went on one of my first cruises to the Mediterranean with my wife, and we met some folks. The folks on the cruise were a little older than us, and we got to know a lot of folks. And I kept on hearing the same story. They were giving me advice. These folks. They said, Jack, don't wait like we did until you're our age to travel and see the world. Time is running out. Do it now while you still can, so you can still climb that pyramid in Thailand or in Egypt, and you can still do some of the things that we cannot do, and we started too late. And that message resonated with me, and I thought about it again and again, and I went on some more cruises and other trips, and I got the same advice again and again. So I approached my wife at that point. We were raising 3 young children and moving in our careers, and I said, Liz, I'll tell you what, you want to travel around the world, or you want a house up on a hill someplace? You can't have both. And she says, let me think about it for 2 seconds. She says, I want to travel. And that was the best decision in hindsight that we made. You know, we took a trip by ourselves one year, and then we took a family trip the next year, and we went back and forth. And as a result of that, we've been able to travel around the world a couple times and see places where I would say most people haven't had a chance to see, and do some of the things. And then later on, when I was able to retire early, and I can get into that if you'd like, I joined an adventure group, which Thomas is part of.
Okay.
And there were 4 of us managers that retired about the same time, and we decided that one day a week we're going to do something exciting. One day a week on a Tuesday, we're going to hike up in the San Gabriel Mountains, and the other week we'll go on bike rides, because one of the fellas was an avid biker. So we all got bikes. We got these high-end bikes. And
is that Nabil?
Well, Nabil now, he joined later on.
Okay.
He retired. And by the way, this group expanded from 4 to 14 to 15. And mostly Water and Power retirees and friends. And so we've been doing this for 15 years, every Tuesday or every other Tuesday. And
where do you beat and ride your bikes? Or
road bikes. So we would go on. we would go along, for instance, the San Gabriel River. There's a bike path, and we would do, and some of us would focus on hiking, some on biking, some both, and that's what happens in life. Everyone has different tastes and different likes, and they would go 50, 60, 70 miles on a bike, and it was great. I mean, for someone who personally who's never ridden bikes, it was nice to try to keep up with these folks. And first you can't, but after a while, and then they do centuries, and they go up. Some of these folks go 2 centuries, the dual century ones, and then some of us we learned all the paths up in the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains. And we expanded beyond San Gabriel Mountains. We went to the Santa Monica Mountains. We went up the coast. I remember spending a whole year trying to find all the hikes from here up to Santa Barbara along the coast. And we tried it. We tried everything because we had time. And then this adventure group went into a little more adventuresome stuff, traveling. We went to all the national parks. We went to Yosemite, we went to Zion, Arches, and we did some of the best hikes in the world.
Are you all still meeting?
The COVID took a bite out of that, and we stopped for 9 months or so, and it's starting to pick up right now. I went on a hike 2 weeks ago with Thomas and 3 others, and the bike riders are starting to pick that up. And some of us have stopped. Some of us can't. We have some health issues. We're not getting any younger. And but it's going to pick up again. And it's more of a, it turns out to be, and I'll say this for Thomas here, it's less competitive, Thomas, if you're out there. We don't have to be the first to the top of the mountain. It's just making it up there, and it's really the lunch afterwards is more important.
Well, that's why he doesn't hike that much with us, because he won't be the first. I have a question. What is the some of the difficulties and some of the joys of traveling with 3 kids?
Well, we continue to travel with the kids until they were in their 20s and 30s. And we still, a year and a half ago, we did an Alaskan cruise with 11 of the family members.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's easier now, but to think back, I can't recall, to be honest with you, I can't recall when the kids were very young. And now we're traveling with the grandkids, and it presents different, it's a different joy. And to take, I have a 16-year-old and I have a 6-year-old. So to take them on trips is a fantastic feeling. It's, as most people understand that.
Right. What are a few of the places you have visited you referred to before, special places that many, haven't had the opportunity to go see? Sure.
Well, I've got favorites all over the world, whether it's New Zealand or Australia, whether it's China, Singapore, and Vietnam and Thailand. I have a lot of favorites.
You've named a lot of Asian.
Well, that was favorite, and South America is the same. Mm-hmm. Going to the national parks down there in Chile and Argentina and Brazil and going up to Alaska. So Europe. So we've done all these more than once. Mm-hmm. But what I like in this stage of life is I like sometimes the vacations with my buddies where we do some really exciting hikes that are pushing us to the limits. Like the last one I can remember was one of my favorites, is going to Switzerland for 2 weeks and climbing, doing 7, 8 all-day hikes up some of the best-known mountain ranges up to the snowpack. And that was just phenomenal. Something that I get chills today just talking about it. And
you really like to incorporate physical activity, don't you?
I do with my friends. Mm-hmm. The family is not always in line with that. and that's okay. There's no right or wrong. Everyone has
Just different
tastes.
experiences. Right.
We did the Colorado River. We went river rafting from Glen Canyon Dam all the way almost to the end. 7 days of river rafting and the rapids, and helicoptered out of there.
Go back to your old profession and the Colorado River. Is it still as important to LA, or more important, or less important? How does that fit in?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And LA, well, I can talk for Southern California and LA, but LA has 5 sources of water. It has the Owens River, the LA Aqueduct is the first. The second one that was built through a joint effort by water agencies throughout the state that formed the Metropolitan Water District is the Colorado River Aqueduct that comes from the Colorado River and comes from the Rocky Mountains there by Denver and flows west. And then you have the aqueduct, the California Aqueduct, that was formed by Department of Water Resources, and so that's a third source that comes into Southern California. And then you have the groundwater. People don't realize that there's a high water table in certain parts of Southern California that fill up and can be pumped out. 500,000 acre-feet capacity, that's quite a bit. And then you have recycled water, which is a big push. And what they're doing, they're spending, they're going to be spending billions of dollars on taking water that has flowed down to the ocean, basically, and pump it back up to these water basins and let it percolate down into the earth and get cleaned up, and then pump it up again. So that's a project all by itself, and that's being done all over.
So you've got these 5 sources. Do you have a fear of the drought, or a drought, or how does that weigh in?
It's a good question, and I just heard a presentation last 2 weeks ago in our Water Power Associate meetings. We meet once a month. We do it on Zoom now, and we had the fella that Quan, I can't remember his full name, but he's in charge of the water resources for Southern California. He works with MWD and DWP, and we've been very lucky. 5-7 years ago, we're into the second year of a drought here. People don't realize it. And 5-7 years ago, I would have told you that we're in trouble. You're going to have announcements not to water your lawn and so on and so forth, very much like what happened in the 1900s. But through proper planning, the state, MWD, mainly the state and Metropolitan Water District, have planned nicely. They built some massive reservoirs and expanded the water that's reserved. So, whereas we only had a supply for 2 years of a drought, we now have 4 years in just the last 7-8 years. So we're good for another 2 years, is the good news. But if you don't see rain in the next year or two, we're back to worrying about the green lawns and conservation. And also, conservation people have used, believe it or not, this is something that's not known by many people, that, for instance, LA uses less water now per person, or for the whole city, I should say, than they did 20 years ago, even though the population has increased.
And that's because of recycling?
Conservation.
Oh, conservation, which is different than recycling.
Conservation.
Yeah, okay.
Conservation and the land use has changed too. Farms would use the most. There's not too much space for farms in Southern California.
How are people conserving?
People are conserving by little things that you might not, that adds up, is low water flush, the flush toilets, the shower heads. That's required in all new facilities now, and people get rebates. And I'm not trying to push this, but it's common knowledge that people are using less water per person. And the lawns are getting smaller. People are putting in the synthetic lawns. They're putting in different types of growth that's more for desert. So there is conservation. And the price of water goes up. When the price of water goes up, people say, how can I conserve? Okay, that has a factor behind it.
Sure. Well, there's a couple of topics that I want to dive into, but one is what you're doing now, the consulting on helping people navigate the bureaucracy with the water. And the other was something that's probably interesting to you, Scott, is you've obviously done something well with retiring. You seem happy, you seem stress-free, and you seem very vibrant. So those are some areas that we want to get into, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Warmoth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
All right, we're back with Jack Feldman. Before the break, we mentioned two topics, and which one do you want to get into first, the consulting or the retirement?
I can go over the consulting very lightly, and it's not really much of a consulting. It's the growth in LA has been tremendous, and which has slowed down the process of hooking up new houses and buildings. It's a long process. It takes about a year and a half. And I used to manage that organization. I created that process back in the 80s and helped. And it's gone down a bit since then. And I've been working with DW&PA management, trying to get some additional resources to help them out. But in the meantime, people come to me and said, look, Jack, how can I can't wait another year to get power to my building. How do I navigate through this? And for years I was doing this pro bono. I was doing helping people out and explaining to them the system and what they needed to do. Most people just shoot themselves in the foot. They don't follow the process. It's a complex process, and they wait till the last minute to do something. So I try to educate the folks. I used to do talks to building industry association and developers years ago when I was in management, and so now I do the same thing now with folks. And so I do a little consulting. It's not much, but it keeps my mind working. And I also help DW&PA in the sense that I go back and help them get some additional resources, more engineers. And I've also been involved in doing orientation for those engineers. I volunteer my time to go back and talk about what they can do to improve their careers and what they can do to help out the process and help the customers out there, because sometimes the perception is not too good of the folks, the ratepayers and the developers, and trying to, once you're a manager and you spent your entire career, adult life, working for an organization, you feel part and parcel of that organization. So that's the consulting and helping out the community. And
that clears up a lot. I thought, go see Jack and he'll cut the year and a half down.
No.
I was just joking.
Yeah, and you know what? It keeps my mind sharp, a little sharper than it has. Some of it is gone already. Trust me. What happens when you retired. And the second question was what was
you developed a system to assist people to retire successfully, or that's what I understood.
Oh yes, okay. Well, we talked about this before the interview, and so I had an opportunity to retire at an early age, at 55. I could have gone on further, And I came to the realization that life is too short. We talked about traveling, and I've had my first grandchild came about. This was 15 years ago, and I had a ailing father was in his last year, in his 90s, and I said to myself, this is a no-brainer. I could continue working, and I enjoyed what I was doing. I was thriving in my career. But, there's more to life than work. And I woke up one morning and it just hit me, and I said, okay, I'm going to retire. I can retire. I can make this work. And then I got scared. What am I going to be doing in retirement? That's the number one question that comes up. What am I going to do? That's quite a gap to jump. And
but a lot of people don't take that into account before they retire. They retire. But I think you said you researched it before you retired.
I did. And I'll give you I took a week off and I practiced retirement. Okay. I went to my daughter was coaching a high school soccer team. I followed that. And I got scared because there wasn't enough oomph behind that. So what I did was, as I mentioned, analytical, cerebral. I studied retirement, and I studied studies on retirement. And I came up with, and I tell people when I talk to them, and I've given a couple talks on this, you can read all the books on retirement you want, and I'm going to save you all that step. I'm going to save you all those steps and all that time, and I can summarize for you some of the five, 6 keys to successful retirement, which comes up again and again. Everything fell into those 5 categories. And if you've got this, there's a much better chance you're going to have a very fulfilling retirement. And it's worked for me. But let me go over this. Okay, the first thing is the financial piece. And what works for you doesn't necessarily work for me, and vice versa. You might want $50 million in your account. I might want $50,000 in my account, just a roof over my head, and that's it. So that's a personal thing, and based on your needs. So that's an obvious one, the financial. You've got to get the house in order and squared away. The second one is the health issue. Okay, if you can't stay physically fit, if you can't get out of bed in the morning, what good is $100 million in the bank? So that's a big piece, to have good health habits. It's pretty obvious, but it's a common theme in retirement. If you don't have those health habits, and nothing else matters. So that's the second piece. The third piece is the mind. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. If you don't stretch that band again and again, it becomes brittle and it breaks. And so continue education, read a lot, get involved in things you enjoy, organizations, and utilize your skill sets and knowledges that you've acquired in life. The fourth category is easier for women than it is for men. And that's networking and being a part of other people's lives. Having be a part of their lives and having them be a part of your life. Whether it's family or friends, community. Get involved with people. It's such an important aspect of retirement. And we see that again and again in all those studies. So those are 4. And the 5th only applied, this is an interesting one, the 5th category only applied to 50% of the population. 50% didn't matter, 50% essential. And what is that? Well, it's more of a spiritual side. It's more of a giving back. And 50% didn't need this. 50% can go to the gym every day and just take care of themselves, and it's all me. I'm going to travel and take care of myself, and that's it. But there's a 50% factor in the population. It's amazing that needs to feel like they make a difference in life. And I realized that there's two areas of, so those are the five. I'm getting back to myself here, but those are the five categories that you find that are consistent in all those studies. Now, I did some other research because I love to find out about meaning and purpose in life and what makes life tick, and that's a challenge that people have in life. And something that you could do every single day, it's almost in line with retirement, makes life more fulfilling, whether you're 92 or 22. Again, I read all the self-help books when I was in my 20s and 30s, and this is what I got out of it. And again, I'm going to save you all this time of reading. Okay, you probably know it already, but I'll say it anyway. So every day when you get up, something to do, okay? Every day. Every day when you get up, someone to love, a significant other. Every day when you get up, something to look forward to, whether it's short-term or long-term, whether it's that vacation, whether it's a talk, this podcast, which I've never done one before, something to look forward to. Every day when you get up, think of something that you could do to contribute, to give back, to make a difference, to share with other folks what you've learned, to help someone down the block, to your neighbor take out the trash, for instance, little things like that. Every day when you get up, the fifth, something to be thankful for. Because if we're above ground, if we're breathing, it's still a good day. So that's my philosophy in life. That's what I learned in my earlier years. And coupled with retirement, I think those two philosophies give you a pretty good picture of a map of living life in a fulfilling way.
And it looks like you've been pretty faithful to it.
There are ups and downs, and there's some things that are beyond our control. Our health sometimes is beyond our control. I've had some issues, but besides that, you can control. We create. If how do I put this? I studied Eastern philosophy, and Eastern philosophy, they talk about we create our own suffering in life. Pain is pain. That comes with life. Discomfort is part of life. But suffering is more of a mind thing. It's more of a mental. It's a roadmap we put for ourselves. And once you understand that, you're mindful of it, there's a much better chance that you're on the right path for more happiness in life.
You describe your retirement as having been an early retirement.
Yes.
Have you ever gone back and wished you were still working?
Never. And here's the thing. What I do now is I do more of the things I want, and I do less of the things I don't want, in simple terms. And the things that I miss about my career, working with people and engaging in solving problems, I can do the same thing now and get that fulfillment. I don't have to get paid for it. I can go back to the organization I work for, the utility, and I can say, look, I've learned a lot, and I think I can share this information with you. And some folks listen, and I share, and I get involved, like with the new engineers, I give them the orientations. And so that's that's giving back, and it keeps the mind going in the ways that were fulfilling when I worked. We're creators of our own destiny, and what we want, what we need, we can replicate it in any arena. It's up to our mind and up to us.
Yeah, I think the fourth point that you touched on, I found really fascinating when studying longevity, that people are always looking for the exercise or the food to eat or not to eat. And what I read was the most impactful thing in terms of longevity was people's connection to other people. That blew me away when I read that, and that was the most significant factor. So you could be eating right, you could be exercising, but if you had little to no connection with other people, that was really tough. So thank you for sharing that. I love how you made that like a bullet point for people. we're going to go on to another bullet point, so to speak, and that's where we learn about your favorites in the San Gabriel Valley.
Jack, we have a segment of the show which we have now reached. We call SGV3. Like to talk about important places or locations, places, experiences you've had in the San Gabriel Valley. Can you narrow it down to 3?
Oh, absolutely. I could do even more than 3 because over the last 15 years, I've grown to appreciate what is found in the San Gabriel Valley, from the architecture of the city takes pride in preserving some of the buildings. I love architecture now, as I have a section on our website just on buildings, and it resonates with me. But the main points, I would say, Pasadena Playhouse is the culture here in the San Gabriel Valley, and I have personal connections with the Pasadena Playhouse. Russell and I talked about that, and I think it's I love culture, and I love shows and musical, and you have one of the oldest, if not the oldest, theater in the state of California here at Pasadena Playhouse. It's preserved, and my connection with it also, other than going to all the shows, is my son, who happens to be the executive producer and artistic director at Pasadena Playhouse.
Oh, wow, that's
Danny Feldman.
He probably knows Rosalind then.
Yeah. So our guest Rosalind Woods, I don't know what show number she was, but she actually did our interior design here at this house, and she also did the Pasadena Playhouse.
No kidding. So there's a connection.
About 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, they redid the theater.
She was in charge of that.
Yeah, and that's when my son, a few years back, came over and from New York. He was running a small show in theater in New York.
Really?
With Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, yeah?
I worked with him before Seymour, his demise, and had a theater there, the Labyrinth Theater, and then he came when this position came available. He interviewed.
Wow, that is very impressive.
Very proud of my young son.
Wow.
And
we're reaching out to him to hopefully get him on the show too.
Oh, that would be a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
a great guest.
I talked with him on it. He said he'd be happy to join you. And
so he is full-time. Did you say he's the creative director? I'm sorry.
He's both. Yeah, they used to have 2 positions. They combined it. He's I'm trying to get this right. He's the executive producer and the creative director.
Oh, great! Was he there when Al Pacino was there few years ago?
Oh, yes.
And I saw that show.
Good show, and Al Pacino is great.
Yeah.
And one of the best shows I've seen. I traveled to New York all the time when he was there, I saw shows. But when they did the production of Ragtime here, it was one of the best productions of Ragtime that you would see any place in the world.
Wow. Yeah, that would be a good one.
And it went all out. They had a great production. They had a lot of people donating and making it work. So getting back to this, Pasadena Playhouse, of course, is my favorite.
Okay.
And then there's also the Arboretum, the LA County Arboretum, and they have the Pasadena Pops, which I've gone to many times.
Are they going to be doing that this summer?
They are.
Okay.
I was checking it out on the website. At least they're planning on doing it in July, as early as July. So that I enjoy. I enjoy the outdoor area. And I love that area for walks. I know that our good buddy Thomas goes there for walks all the time. And but my favorite, I save it for last, are the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains, because who knew? I never went hiking there, never could appreciate the beauty of these mountains. So when I retired, one of the retirees, another manager in the engineering side, maybe he'll listen, maybe he's listening, Kent Noyes, He knew the trails up there like the back of his hand because he went hiking there all his career at Water and Power. And he took us, he was our leader, and he took us every other Tuesday on every single hike you could think of in the San Gabriel Valley, mountains. And I can tell you, I saw things and I was amazed by the nature. It's a hidden secret. Not too many people realize what they have in their backyard over here. I can name all of them, but from, the Echo Mountain, Mount Low is the famous one, and you have Eaton Canyon, and you have Baden Powell, and you have
Mount Wilson,
and you have them all. And you cannot run out of hikes. And if in the summer, I don't know if Angeles Crest is open now, to be honest with you, but in the summer when it gets hot, we would always go up in higher elevations where, the temperature would drop a few degrees for every 1,000 feet. And that made all the difference. So, when it's 100 degrees down here, it could be 80 degrees up there, 78. So it's more manageable. And we would I miss those. I don't think I could do as many as I used to for health reasons. And so that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful area in the San Gabriel Valley. It's the number one. And it's something that you could see and enjoy and observe wherever you live in the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, those mountains are really special. And they've been a consistent pick among our guests as a SGV3 pick,
I can understand
different trails.
Why.
Right. Yeah, we are very lucky to have those.
I think the 2 is open. I think Chantry Flats will be closed for a number of years because of the fire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so that's unfortunate. That's like Hermit Falls, Sturtevant Falls.
Yeah, there are 3 or 4 hikes coming out of Chantry Flats.
Yeah.
Up Lake Street, right?
No, Chantry
I'm sorry, I'm not, that's Echo Mountain.
Santa Anita, I think.
Yeah.
Santa Anita.
Yeah.
Well, those are, all 3 of those are really great picks, and thank you for sharing those with the listener. I want to make sure that we encourage the listeners to check out the waterandpower.org website and go to museums and look at all the amazing stuff that you've curated. I mean, probably this would take weeks to look through, I think.
Well, it took me 12, 13 years to put it together as a pastime and not watching TV and work on that. And I have a passion for it. It's something, but you know what? It's resonated, and I want to promote it. It's all for the public good. We're not looking for anything, but we're getting, believe it or not, we're getting over 500 visitors a day. We've had over 2.5 million visitors on the website. And it's I like to put it this way. I get a kick out of it because I have an office and I have a little garden. It's in a corner house, and I have a little garden and flowers that I look out the window, and I sometimes see people walk by and they look at the flowers, and it jazzes me up when someone looks at it and smells the flower. Some people even take pictures. When I see people look at the website, and I look at it on a daily basis, it's more of an ego thing sometimes. I'm looking at 500 people coming by and looking at the flowers in my virtual museum and appreciating. The average time spent on it is 4 minutes per page, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of pages. So they're looking at it and they're getting some information. And I've been able to evolve it in the sense that I get a lot of feedback with people saying, they're saying you've got the description a little wrong. And I love to interact with folks who look at it.
That's
so
good.
Over the years, so it's a living document.
Community. Yeah.
It's a living document, and I've been able to revise it and upgrade it.
Repeat the website address.
It's waterandpower.org, or just type in Water and Power Associates, and you will get that the connection to the website.
Well, wonderful. We're definitely going to have that up in the show notes and on YouTube, so people can easily check that out. I'd highly encourage you, if you're listening, to go to that site and look under museum. Look at all the information and history that's been curated here. It's truly amazing. Jack, thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing your information with us and with the world. Really, to have this is really a treasure, and I'm really blown away that this exists. It's really important, and I'm always amazed what people can do when they have some passion behind what they're doing. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the listeners, thank you for spending this time with us again. And if you are that listener in France, we appreciate it. And send us a message. You can email us at info@sgvmasterkey.com. And we'll see you again next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.